Whether you live in an apartment, a condo, or have a very small yard, you can still increase your food security and have a little homesteading of your own. A kitchen garden, growing food you like to eat, is completely attainable by using containers. In this video, I'm going to show you how. Hi garden friends, it's Chris from Gardening at the Simongetti North, and today I'm doing a global gardening homesteading community video. #Gardening Homesteading Skills. It's an initiative to teach the world on how to grow your own food. In today's video, I am going to show you how container gardening is attainable if you live in an apartment, condo, or just have a small yard. So if you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you've been to my channel before, welcome back. So let's get to the information on growing vegetables in containers. What should I grow in my container garden? Well, first you want to grow food that you're going to actually eat. And then there's varieties that are perfect for container gardening. You'll want to choose vegetables that are prolific, and maybe something that you wouldn't want to buy at the store because they're more expensive and it would be cheaper just to grow it on your own. Some vegetables only offer a one and done. You plant the seed and you harvest the vegetable, like the beets, radishes, carrots, corn. And then there's other vegetables that will continue to produce as you pick them, like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, until the weather conditions are not favorable to continue growing. Here are some simple crops that can be grown in containers. Botanical Interest has actually a collection of vegetables that are easy to grow in containers. There's a picture of it right here. It's a cute little box, and it has all the seeds that you need to be able to grow vegetables in containers. The vegetables that are in the container vegetable collection are bush bean contender, they're carrots, tanda di parigi. They're a very small carrot, not like a fingerling, but almost, I don't know, they only get like that big. Cucumber Space Master 80, kale dwarf blue curled, mini romaine little gem lettuce, bunching onions scallion Tokyo long white, California wonder sweet peppers, spinach, lavua, L-A-V-E-W-A, summer squash, emerald delight, and cherry falls tomato are all in that cute little box. You'll also want to make the most effort when growing in containers, and you can grow vertically. You can put like those cages inside a container so the plants can grow up, which will help with your space. You can do tomatoes, peppers, pole beans, cucumbers, any vining type plant that would do well in a container and have a trellis or some sort of cage to be able to climb up. Also, using a trellis to be able to grow vertically also helps on your back, so you're not bending over as much to be able to harvest your vegetables. Now I'm going to talk about smart spacing. Sow crops in succession. For crops that offer a one-time harvest, like carrots, radishes, thin seedlings to half the suggested spacing. Harvest every other plant when they are half grown for baby carrots and beets. In the spaces between, sow radishes or cilantro between the rows. Quick sprouting radishes not only mark where you've planted where you've needed to water, but will be harvested before the other crops is large enough to feel crowded. So, that's kind of a good idea, to be able to put something that's gonna grow quicker, and then the vegetables that take a little bit longer to grow beside them, and then you can use your space a little more wisely. Here's a tip. Planting in a triangular shape instead of in rows or squares actually allows more space for planting. Many seeds can be started indoors and then transplanted out to your container garden later on when the weather conditions permit. So when you're planting your container garden, you also want to consider if you have sun and where the sun may be. You want to have at least 6 hours of sun to be successful in container gardening. This also allows you to grow anything you want to grow in the container as long as you have sun. Anything requiring partial shade is 4 to 6 hours. So things like leafy vegetables, kale, Swiss chard, spinach, and any herb can do 4 to 6 hours of sun and be part shade. A professional potting mix is recommended for using in container gardening, where if you just use some dirt from the ground, it could have pests and disease in them, and you don't want that starting off in your container garden. So you'll want to use a potting mix that has maybe a little bit of perlite in it to help with some of the moisture so it doesn't dry out as quick, and just light and airy for the roots to be able to breathe. Read the instructions on the soil bag to make sure you know what you're getting, because the difference in price can be a big deal when picking out the soil that you want. I also use like the Proven Winners potting mix. It has a release fertilizer for up to 6 months that helps feed your plants as well. So if you get something like that, you won't need to fertilize for a while. So you want to make sure you know what's in your soil and your potting mix when you're filling up your containers, so you know if you need to add nutrients or if it can be used as is for now. The Proven Winners potting mix is great for containers, raised beds, hanging baskets, anything that you can use it for. I've tried other potting mixes, but I always end up going back to that one. So the next thing I want to talk about is container size, because in this situation, size does matter, because if you're planting like a root crop, you want to make sure that you have enough room for the crop to actually grow in the dirt in the container, you know, where something more that grows up out of the soil doesn't need the deeper container. It can be a more shallower container. So for root crops, you want to have at least a minimum depth of 12 inches, but at least 18 inches for carrots, because carrots do get a little bit longer. So you want to account for that extra space in your container for the carrots, unless you use that one carrot that I'll put up in the corner that only gets like that big for containers. Those are kind of cute. Or fingerling carrots in containers. But if you're going to grow regular carrots in containers, you definitely need at least the 18 inches. If you're going to grow tomatoes, you'll want like a 5-gallon bucket for tomatoes, and then a 3 to 4 gallon container for like peppers, cucumbers, and like I said, for the shallow roots like lettuces, you can get away with 4 inches of soil, but 6 inches is better. And if you're going to try to grow squash in a container, they also need a 5-gallon bucket. And then you can try that vertically as well, unless it gets kind of heavy. I would try maybe more like the baby squash or something on the smaller side for growing squash in containers. But whatever container that you choose to use, make sure that you have drainage holes. You need to make sure that that water, if it's outside when it rains, it will fill up your container. So you need to make sure that there's holes in the bottom of the container for that water to drain through, or your plants are going to get pooled in water and they're just going to drown in it. So make sure there's proper drainage. When plants are young, you want to make sure that you water consistently until they get established. And with container gardening, you also want to keep an eye on the heat outside and the wind to make sure that your containers don't dry out too soon. So always check your containers, especially on really hot, windy days, and stick your finger in about an inch or two. And if it's still wet down there, then you're good. But if it's dry, make sure you get them watered. And when you're watering the containers, keep watering them until you see the water coming out the bottom. That makes sure that all the water is going around the whole container and getting all the roots wet and not just maybe on the top. So you want to make sure it's a thorough watering all the way through. Watering in the mornings is ideal, but you can also water in the evenings. But if your plant is totally dried out, the best time to water is now. So maintaining your containers, you'll want to ask yourself a few questions. Did I use the potting mix that had some, nutrients in it? Is it past the 6 months? Is it time to start adding some granular fertilizer? So these are all things that you need to consider when container gardening as well. Any gardening for that matter. If you're in the ground or if you're in raised beds, you still need to consider the nutrients in your soil and make sure that your plants are thriving and getting the nutrients that they need. Granular fertilizers usually last a little bit longer, but the liquid fertilizers are usually pretty immediate. Most plants need nitrogen at the beginning, but as they start growing, you'll need to switch to a high nutrient-rich phosphorus to help with flowering and fruiting. Wow, I know this was a lot of information all at once, but luckily for a video, you can actually go back, rewind, rewatch. So if there's anything that you did miss, you can actually go back and see what you missed to remember what you need to do with container gardening. I feel it's very important to be able to know how to grow your own food, at least even just to supplement what you can buy at the grocery store to help keep costs down. Please share this video with anyone who is interested in learning how to do container gardening or just want some ideas for container gardening. If you enjoyed and found value in this video, please smash that like button. And also don't forget to check out other global gardening community videos. There's lots of, I think, over 60 some channels out there in the global gardening community. If you just do the hashtag gardening homesteading skills, you should be able to find all the videos out there with all the channels that are doing these types of videos. Again, thank you for stopping by my channel and supporting me and learning how to grow vegetables in containers. Live, love, laugh, and garden. Hope to see you at the next video. God bless.